G'day everyone, welcome to the Opal Mills. My name's Phil and this is the channel all about opal, or specifically what I get up to with opal. So it could be from the mining, buying parcels, cutting, treating matrix if we need to, setting gold and silver, making doublets, you name it. Cradle to the grave here, so even recycling old jewellery. Today we're going to be doing a bit of silversmithing. So we've got some stones, some will look familiar. This one's going to be done in a silver band with textured band. And I'll flash that up. Give you an idea of what I'm going to try and achieve as requested. So that's going to be that one. We've got 3 blank inlay rings to make. And we've got a couple of pendants we're going to get stuck into as well. So I get asked a bit about all the different bits of the process for jewellery making, and I do skip through some of the more monotonous parts where it's repetitive filing, sawing, and yeah, I speed it up best I can. We've only got a limited amount of time to keep your attention, and I try and keep it within a certain time, but sometimes they go a bit long, I get that. Can't be helped. The information's and the visuals are time consuming. Now, I video all this myself, do all the work myself, edit, film, setting up the camera, taking the shots, doing everything I can possibly show. It's kind of impossible to do it all without, a couple of hour-long videos. So, without rambling too much, I'm going to show as much as I can, but specifically I've been asked about the cleaning up process with the filing, sanding, up to the polish. So I'll pay more attention to that sort of stuff rather than all the soldering and that. I'll just skip through. You'll get to see it, but in stages rather than in depth. We've seen a lot of that before in the other videos. If not, if you're interested in other aspects, I think I've covered a fair bit of stuff in some of the other videos. You might have to scoot back, and otherwise I get repetitive with new people coming on board with questions that have already been answered. Well, that'll chuck it in the comments, and I have no problem trying to answer as many questions as I can there. So anyway, on with it. We're going to start by making the settings. So we're going to get some bezel out and start measuring it all up. Okay, so here we've got our bezel, a flat sheet. It's going to become our bezel. First, I just got to get out the stones and adjust these dividers to the right height. So what I'm looking at, zoom in a little bit, is where I've got that nice edge going around. See if I can get the reflection. There, you can see that flat edge there, and that line where it stops reflecting is where the dome starts. And that should be all the way around at the same height, which will keep our bezel level when set over the top. So finding that and the bottom of the stone height is what I'm trying to do. So where are we? Get your reflection. So between right there, the top part of that, and the dividers I'm pointing to, between there and the bottom, with just a little bit left for filing and any tidy up. So I think just a little bit. Yeah, I reckon about that. Gives the bezel room to sit at the bottom and fold over at the top. I'll get the other 2 stones out and just make sure they're around the same height, which they roughly should be. No, they're going to be different. So I'll have to do each one individually. And we'll start with this one. Boom, boom. So what we're going to do is we'll put this edge up against here, and then run our line down it, and that's our bezel. So then we'll grab tin snips, or snips, and carefully follow this line. Just double check with the stone. Maybe just a bit more. It's that secondary line. I'll go for that one. Right, settings are made, so I'm just going to go solder these. We've seen that before, and we'll come back, we'll reshape them and get them ready to put on backs. Alright, so technically the cleanup's already begun on cleaning up these pieces, which comes in the form of, don't put marks in if you can help it. When you bend corners, or any bend, if you can see this, you'll get a bit of a dip in that, right there in the center of that bend, and these two edges will be higher, more pronounced. That's just an effect of the bending, and as it bends, the center bends and the top and bottom sort of bow out. Unless you can keep the whole lot flat with a pair of pliers the whole time, you'll end up with that. So that's just filing that back after when we do the bezel. But for now, we're not going to really clean up too much of the outside. We're just going to make sure we don't put too many more marks in it. Otherwise, if I clean it up now and do put more marks in it, there's more clean up later. So stitching time. Anyway, doing the inside and making sure these stones fit, and then that discrepancy in height there of this side to that side, we'll put on the file and sort out on all of them. So I'll come back and, oh yeah, might as well show you a bit while we're here. So for something like this, I'm really just wanting to touch on the solder joint. The rest of it should be pretty clean. Very lightly, if you can see that. It's just very light, scuffing it up. And then you can sort of see with the marks you make, any marks that go other ways or bits that haven't been hit by the file, you can sort of see, where are we? As I put my marks left to right, there's a couple of little spots it's not touching yet. So that means they're low points, which means around there, it's probably the solder as it flows a little bit left and right of the join. It encloses your inside gap somewhat. So that should be good. You sort of see all that solder there. It's kind of spilled a bit off this side. Now, except for crystal opal in a bezel, where you might see through to the sides of the bezel, stones like these, you're not going to see through the stone to the inside of the bezel anyway, but it's good to keep it nice and tidy and clean so you don't damage your stone. It's one really good reason to just keep on top of things. So I've got all that done. Now I'm just going to refit these stones in and make sure that they slide in and out easy enough that when I put the base on, and they'll slide in and out still. So to do that, we'll find our pliers I went for a walk with. Alright, so what I do is I use this flat edge here, whichever side, this one even, and I lay these sort of flat on the table. So theoretically that's a 90-degree angle from the table to the side of this. And I'm just gonna push the bezel all the way around, make it conform to the stone, just sideways pressure. I'm not pushing down or up or in too hard, just enough to take advantage of the silver's malleability to mold it. It's pretty much in the shape anyway, so we're just sort of relaxing the silver around it, so to speak, I suppose, so there's no little pinch spots. And this flat edge won't make too many marks on there anyway, so that's another advantage of using a flat edge. You always use clean edges if you can. Bit of a bulge right there. Sorted that out. A little bit there. Yep, slides in nicely. So that's that one. Make sure it goes all the way through to the bottom. Yep, so that's that one. There you go, so that bump's actually at the bottom. Let's go, yeah, check these kids are going to be loud. School holidays, gotta love it. Alright, house hasn't burned down, we're all good. Okay, so they're ready to go on the back, which will be this. Alright, one more thing I've got to do and then check the stones again. So I've got to flush these bottoms up on the file. So, file cuts on this stroke down towards the handle. So if you're pushing the handle forward, it'll be doing it. So if we move this that way, it'll do it. So we just want to scuff up, see how far out it is and where our high and low points are. It's touching around here. It's not touching around this corner here. It's touching down this edge around to here, to there. Skipping that corner. Just getting in a bit closer. Yeah, I can see a nice shiny surface all the way over the bottom now. Slip our stone straight back in. Beautiful. So I haven't pushed it out of shape at all since I set the shape. So that one's ready to go. It should sit nice and flat. No gaps. Solder will flow beautifully on the inside around there. Alright, go solder this and come back. Alright, so we got those settings on their bases. We're letting them soak in the pickle for a bit. Just practiced seeing what I can do about getting that texture down. So I've created a couple of different shapes using 4-inch nails and 4-inch, 3.5 something. Just filed down some sort of 6-sided shape, 4, the point I've left as is. So I'm just going to go around and knock in some marks, see if I can blend them a bit better than that, and get that texture down. So we'll see how we go. Just going to go and hammer it out. I'll come back. So there we are. Hammer it out, bit of texture. When this ring gets bent, these will all get stretched lengthways, putting them that bit out of shape from what they are now. Hopefully making them not look exactly the same. They're square and 6-sided. So that should be enough for the ring. Size R1/2. So we might go get these settings out the pickle, give them a tidy up. Okay, so again, what we don't want to do is leave unnecessary marks in the side from the snips. So we snip close, but just be careful that we don't run the blade down the side of it as we snip. Not quite a spider, but you're interesting looking. One wing left. Oh no, you got folded wings. Where'd you go? Anyway, hitchhiker. I'm not Galaxy. Like that. So a little snip got a bit close. It's not too bad, but you still got to be careful. ready to be filed. So next stage is I'm going to neaten up these bases and take out a few of the scratches and neaten up the outside a bit with a file. And the pendants will start with the 1200, with the 400, take it up to 800 before we put the bail, loop and bail on top. But this we'll just go around the sides, tidy up. Again, probably get the 400, but I'll leave the 800 for when I solder the band on. So with filing, always keep things the shape that you want to file. So if I want a flat surface, got a flat file. If you want a half round and round, other shape files, it's handy to get yourself a little set of these. So I hold that between my two fingers, trying to figure out which way is level across my fingers, and usually I can feel it hit this finger and this finger, and you can feel it laying flat. If it tilts, you can feel a bit of a gap open up one side or the other. So I just run that flush across the surface. Don't have to push super hard. We're not trying to, you know, the little tiny teeth on this file are only so big, and they are, you can feel them gripping and ripping bits of metal away, so it's doing its job. It's just going to take a few swipes, a few passes, a little bit of time consuming. Be great to have the perfect grip for every stage, every time, but you know, start off with this file. Could start off with a more aggressive file, but then risk taking more off and having to get those scratch marks out, kind of like when you're cutting opal. So as you can see here, it's not touching in the middle. That's that bow I'm talking about between the top edge, sorry, the two outside edges and the center. It dips down to the center because of the way it was bent. So we are going to file a little bit away from the tops and bottoms just to reach that center like that. And then we'll chase that fog out as we go around. We only just want it out because we're yet to do some more filing and sanding and that, and some of that can come out a bit later. I'm just going to give it a nice, I want to see all my file marks going in the one direction. Anything crisscrossing or going other than these marks, you know, is something that it's not down a surface or something's dipping in somewhere like a little dent. So being careful with your silver saves a lot of this. Some of it's inevitable. You're going to have to file as much as you can off. By cutting, the more I cut off without going too far, the less filing I've got. I know my bottom end here is definitely jutting out as opposed to the top edge. So I want to focus on the bottom edge till it starts creeping up towards the center, and then I'll lean it more pressure as I go through onto the left side. But really, I'm keeping it flush and it's just resting on that bottom edge really. So the bottom edge is sticking out further. Where are we? Let's go back here. Break every now and then, give your thumb a rest. Pop it back into shape. There we go. So I'm going to do the other two and I'll come back. It's still a bit warm out here. We've lost our light on the camera. But these are Dremel bits, diamond burr, and they wear out. And as they wear out, you can see the mandrel in the center starts to get exposed, and you just use up what you can. But when you're done with it, what I did here was got one, cut it off up here somewhere, and then ran a jeweler's blade down the center, giving me a split mandrel for my Dremel, to which I put little bits of sandpaper on, and we do our sanding. Very easy. So, you've got Dremel. Okay, so for these, all I do fold it down into a little square and fold it over, almost like making a paper plane, creating a little point up there. Not sure if you can see this, but just with that mandrel. Make sure the point's at the top. And off we go. Okay, you can sort of see the difference in finish. That's what we're after. Okay, so that's these done. So next step, I get prepared a band for this one, and make it into R1/2. So I'm going to bend it, roughly join it, which is going to have a section cut out for this to sit in anyway. And this bin's beaten as heck, so there's a lot of cleanup to do. Look at all the dings I've got to get out now. No, I mean this side. It's a bit of cleanup to go because of all the roughness from the hammering this side, and the edges are out. So I'll show you how to get this back into an actual ring shape, but first we're just going to flush this end up, wrap it around the mandrel, make an R1/2, cut it to size, solder it, and then yeah, we'll clean it up. So soldered, rounded, it's down to about just on size R, just under maybe. We want R1/2, but I've got to file the inside yet, and we can get some ground there. So for the inside, I'm going to use a 1/2 round. So it's rounded one side, flat the other. I'm going to run on the inside edge. Start down here by the solder. Solder's not too big a deal because that section's getting cut out, but it's a good place to start because it's the highest point usually, if at all. It's not too bad. Alright, so I've gone around the inside, and everywhere that the file has touched, there's sort of the high points, and everywhere you can see it hasn't touched yet, they're the low points. So we need to get down to the low points, which means taking the high points right down. The majority of it's down. I can touch that up with the 400 grit. So just get rid of all this. And get our file. And we're just going to take these sides down flush on the file. Couple of points there, but we can get that down with the next stages. So I'm going to take this sharp edge off the inside here so you don't cut your finger when you put it in. But we won't do that right now. I'll wait till I've cut it, soldered it, and it meets up nicely to the ring, and then we'll do that. So 400, just going to do the inside part. Alright, so here we are at this stage. Inside mostly cleaned up. I'm going to give it a stamp, and then we'll mark out, keeping our join at the top, so we cut the join out, and then where it joins to the band is the only joins, and it's a solid ring. So I'll quickly go stamp it, and then we'll start. Yeah, I'll mark out the marks and come back and show you. Okay, we have our 925 stamp. And we have our marks marked out. So I'm going to go cut this join out and try not to make too many marks that don't need to be in there. Just quickly, we have a ring. And when we're cutting it to set a setting in, these sides are flush, and they're going to run flush and keep it even. So at the width of that, pen fail me not, around that there. So that's the width of the setting. So if I was cutting it here, we don't want to aim towards the center of our cut, because then we've got a different angle. So to keep the setting straight, we need to cut sort of straight through, as if we're cutting that like that. I'll get this up sideways to you guys. I don't know if you can follow that logic, but that'll keep the sides flush for the setting. Otherwise they'll be sort of, yeah, angled towards the middle, which you don't want. So to make that easier, got it on a ring holder, and I'm just going to sit it like that and cut straight forwards. Okay, so like so. Let's see how well this goes in. So we'll go and solder this on, and we'll go through the cleaning up process of this one. We've also got to get the pendants ready for their loops and bails. And yeah, I'll get some loops and bails ready for these guys. Okay, so now I'm gonna, before we put the bail and loops on, just quickly file this edge back a bit. It's seeming, it's kind of a pretty thick bezel. We want it taken right back almost to that inside edge, and try not to come down further than that. So, file. Start on the long straights. The corners are easy to wear down. Just going to trim up that burr on the inside so I can get a good gauge of thickness. Otherwise, when I put it on the other file, it's sort of fatten that top edge up with a burr. If I tried to file that in and the burr's on the inside, I'd probably file it to the burr comes off, and I found out I'd gone too low. See a bit of the bird I'm talking about. It just came off. Oh, there it is. It's like a hair metal. That one's on the outside edge. So there we go. I'm going to neaten that up with the sanding Dremel in a minute. Make that look pretty. We've got that edge started to work down. May need to take a bit more off here and there. But for the most part, I'm happy with that. Alright, here's the stage we're at. So we've got our little bevel put on there. I've sort of sanded back the rest of it. I'll do the top mostly and blend the rest. But up here we've got to have the loop go on. And it just makes it difficult to get in after that, around it. So you're better off hitting it before you put this on, keeping it tidy, and then don't mess it up in between here and soldering. And once we're done, we'll put that in the pickle, we'll come back and we'll file the ring back and start cleaning that one up. Alright, rings out the pickle. So we're going to have to go around this edge, same thing, bring that in a bit so it's easier to fold over. So back onto the file, off we go. So I might just get this done, save on time. You see me filing, it's just filing. I suppose you don't want it flat, you want it on an angle. You don't want it too pointed or it'll cut in too quick. So to come down to about here, into that edge and whatever angle between there and there that is, that's what we'll be going for. Alright, done that. So now it's back over to the 400. Tidy it up. We've got the pendants in the pickle. But first up, might as well get everything up to scratch. I'm going to use the rest of this band, roll it out a bit thinner, and make some blank inlay rings. Okay, so we've got some freshly rolled out. Just stretched out that piece. A little bit flatter. And it's going to have these as sides that the opal can sit in between. So I'm going to get to and get the sizes and come back and figure out what we're going to do. Warm days, it's taken a while to do this. I can only work in the mornings, it gets too hot. So it's taken a little bit to do this. We're at the stage, I didn't get to film it. Got these together for the inlay rings. Now we've just got to shore up this little lip. So this is where the filing starts. Now I can't go all the way and hit the inside because of the angle I've got to file on. I can't file flat. I could, but I want to get a bit of a nice little angle to start rounding it for the inside when you put your finger in. So yeah, I'm going to start, well, whatever marks are there are horrible. I try to keep it minimal. Here's what it is, and this is where I just start, filing. So here we go. For those who wanted to see, I'll do a little bit, and you'll get the gist of it. So it's just little short strokes. It's very time consuming. Yeah, you probably could use a Dremel or something. I don't have the burrs at the moment for it. And it's not always the greatest finish, even then. So you can see my file marks here, it's still hitting just that inner band. When that meets, starts hitting this, I'll stop. And that's where I can start getting a nice even finish all the way around. There's just a tiny little bit left. Almost. Alright. So that's where it's just flushed it right up there. So that'll get a nice little finish. So now I'll chase that all the way around, flushing it up as I go. So I won't show and bore you all with that. But it'll just have a bunch more of these file marks in it, which we then have to get out with the 400. Okay, so we've got all these up to the stage that we're going to start doing the 400. So first up, use this pointy bit just to get in and around everything we need to, and then we'll be setting these before we go too much further. So, done the pendants, you sort of see the difference between the finishes. This one's scuffed up way more than this one. It's got 400 grits all over it, which is what I want. So we're going to take this up to 400, and I'll kind of show the contrast again. What I want to see, and yeah, mainly I'm using the shaped bits too, so I'm on a flat edge here rather than the pointed bits. Got a flat edge here so it runs nice and flat over the edges, around the inside and around there. So there we go, tidied up, 400 grit, put our stamp on the bottoms, and before and afters. So I'll keep doing that, and you'll see I'll try and line them up like this. This one, once done, I'll show you one that's got the 400, then the 800, and you'll see as the steps go how it slowly gets polished into what we want. Now we've got a join mark there. There's nothing I can do about it. That side was hidden very well. Oh, hang on, it's probably in a different spot. Yeah, there's a bit of filing I could do to get that back. It's just a little sink spot where the solder went bloop bloop in on the join that wasn't quite flush properly, but that's okay. So the ring's going to be viewed from this angle anyway, and this will be filled with opal. So I'll get on with this and come back. Alright, hopefully we can see a bit of a difference here. So this is the 400, this is the one I just did. Not super amount of difference, but it is a bit less grit. There you go, you can sort of see there. It's almost like the silver changes colour to a lighter colour the more you polish it, because all the deeper grooves, minute shadows. So it's the smoother it gets, the less shadows, the less darkness, the brighter it is. Yeah, awesome. So I'll keep going, come back once I've done all these in 800 and we'll set some stones. Just quickly, to clean up this inside edge, I'm just going to use a brass brush to run through it. Shouldn't take too long, be etiquette. So here we go. I'm going to start putting the stones in and setting before we go any further. And that's the way it went in. Almost. Might just go around that edge and might be a burr rather than fold it in any further. There we go. Awesome. Click. Look at that. Beautiful. One more. Click. Beautiful. Ready to bezel. So let's go grab my bezel tool. Oh, look, here's one I prepared earlier. So I try and keep this as clean as possible. That's a countersunk screw so it doesn't hit. And I use this so that my little bail can sit over the edge there, because if I have it up like that, it's gonna force that loop up to accommodate the thickness of bail underneath the loop, as the loop is flush with the back of the setting. So if I push down on it, it's just going to go grip forward. So I have that hanging over. Then we just gently work in the corners first. Actually, grab my prong pusher first and just start pushing in the corners gently. Not sure if we can see that. Zoom in a bit. Just pushing the corners in first. So get this one next. Just like that, very gently, not too much pressure. That's why I've filed that bevel at the top, just to thin out the silver to make it more malleable. One to go. And as you can see, I'm just using pressure from this angle. It's not like I've got my hand behind it, so it's not much pressure needed. Just working over the corner. You don't do it all in one hit. And there we go, we've got our corners done. See, if we go down the flat side and we actually minutely even stretch this all the way to the corner, you'll get it all bunched up like a curtain around the corners. So that's why we do it corners first. So now we can get our bezel. Bezel tool. And I always go from the corner towards the broader side, so I don't bunch it up in the corner again and undo the effort we just put in. Beautiful. There we go. So I'll get these other ones done and come back. Alright, so they were a real pleasure to set. Very easy. Now what's left is a bit of a tidy up with the 800. Just take any marks, smooth everything out, blend everything in. Everything else is pretty good, ready for the 1200. These on the back didn't get scuffed up too badly. I'll just give them another quick go over with the 800 though. So yeah, back to sanding. So there's no rush with these stages, and what I'm going to be doing is going around this edge with the point of this and not touching the stone. I want to be able to get around all of that as close as I can to the inside edge without hitting the stone. It should be doable. I usually do it. And then just blend that down to the sides again, back with the other 800 marks. Which is a bit central, it's a bit of a wobble. It's way out. What's going on here? That's better. There we go. So there we go. So I've gotten into the nooks and crannies with the pointy part. I'm just going to go over it with a wide, go all the main surfaces. We're up to 1200, and I'll go through these again. Bit of a side-by-side comparison. It's probably not too much. You can see this one's a little bit maybe shinier. You can still see the marks in this. And this is like the stones, and they start getting a bit towards the 1200 stage, which these are at. Well, this one's at, and yeah, it starts looking a bit more polished. So we've got the wax, the rouge, and the blank to go on this one, and so we'll get the rest of these done, and we'll do the wax. Right, to explain what I've just gone and done is giving everything a good wash with soap, water, hot water, and a toothbrush. Not mine. So I make sure that you don't want to get contamination from the last grit onto the next. With the papers, it's mostly getting blown off with the Dremel as it goes. It doesn't really collect up. But now we don't want to contaminate our cotton mop tops. So if these are clean, I'm going to keep them on a clean cloth, and one by one do them with this, put them on another clean cloth, take them back in, wash that off, and then we'll go into the next one. So for this bit, what we're going to do is swap out split mandrel for these cotton mop tops. This is my wax one. Now the correct wax to use for this stage is called Tripoli, to my understanding. But here I got green and red wax in a cut and polish kit, cheap for something else. And it might have been for stone. Anyway, it's the same grade wax. Does the same job. So you put that in, tighten her up, get this running. I'll wipe it on there and get a bit of it on there, and on with the polishing. Just to make it easier, I might stick to these ones. It's easier to follow the polishing stage going through, comparing one to the other as we go. So these are up to the 1200, and we'll see the difference after I do the wax as opposed to the 1200 finish. But it's definitely not the file marks, it's not the 400, it's not the 800. It's got a nice reflection on it now. So the little scratch marks are getting finer and finer, which is the aim of anything with your cut and polish stone, plastic, timber, metals. So here we go. Start with this outside edge. It's just the same as the sanding process, it's nothing exciting. It's just, don't hit your mandrel on your workpiece, as in don't slip off and hit this center core. That's really annoying because that'll leave marks. So just slowly, gently, hold this firm with this hand, don't let it flick out your hand with the Dremel. Even if you just do a smidge at a time. Now, idyllically, if you've got gloves, little cotton gloves or something, might make it easier to hold on to this, because it does tend to heat up the more friction takes place. I'm Australian, so my hands are pretty tough anyway. So, anyway, comparison. So now you can sort of see that polish is starting to take. We're not even actually polish grit yet, it's just the wax. So yeah, getting there. So I'll go through these, get them all up, and we'll go on to the rouge. Okay, so next polish, well, first the actual polishes, is rouge. And we're going to use a bit of this, and again, I'll show the comparison all the way through to the last one is in. And I won't show you all the footage of me polishing up. It's just the same movements as the file. It's the same surfaces, the angles, same as the sanding. It's all the same. So there's nothing really new to show, except for the result after. Alright, so there's that one. Before, after. Not so much of a difference here. Next stage is the one that will be very noticeable. But you can sort of see the finish is getting a bit shinier. Alright, final stage of polishing. We'll be using this. This is Blanc. It's just a bit finer a polish than the rouge. But again, same process. Alright, let's see if we can tell the difference. Yeah, definite difference. That final step makes. So yeah, there we go. I'll come back once these are all done. We'll look at the rings and pendants. The opal ones. Alright, so here we are, all tidied up, clean, before I put my fingerprints on them. Oops, what do you have? this is the way they've turned out. There's our ring. Rolling flush. And our inlay blanks. Ready to be posted out, and someone's going to set their own opal in it. Hope I get to see how they turn out. But anyway, there we go. That's how I get through my polishing, from filing to polishing. And again, this is something I've been asked quite a few times, so there we go. I've done a video on it. Hope you enjoyed. Cheers.